Okay, welcome back, everyone. It is week 1, day 3. We are going to start our 9 a.m. lecture on loops and operators. Yesterday, we learned about conditional statements, if-else statements, and else statements. We also learned about arrays that morning as well, right? We learned about arrays and how they are a non-primitive data type. They can hold multiple values, and the way those values are stored in an array, they are stored by index. They are ordered by an index number. We start the index number from 0, and then we move upward, and we can move through an array that way. We can access an array's length as well. So all those how do you call them? All those features of an array that we're going to then explore today as well in loops. But before we do that, let's cover the basics of a for loop and what a for loop is. Okay, so now I'm doing this lesson from my PC and my Mac. If I struggle a little bit, then just please be patient, bear with me, and we'll make it through this together. We'll learn about loops either way. Okay, so let's get started. I'm going to move here to the platform, and I'm going to start from here and then move to the Blackboard. So let's give a broad overview, big picture of why for loops are useful and why they're important. Okay, so for loops are another major pillar of programming. And we said the first major pillar was the if-else statement, right? Because we said it was a switch, we can turn things on or off. Well, a for loop is really useful because it helps us read through things. It helps us read through a list of numbers or increment through things. Okay, so let's give an example. Here, let me annotate here on my right. Here we see a list of console logs. We start with console log 0, console log 1, console log 2, 3, 4, 5. With this series of console logs, we're able to log to the console 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But is there a more efficient way to do this? Is there a better way to list out these numbers than to say it manually? Can we make the computer count instead of having to count ourselves? Yeah, well, yes, we can. And that's what we're going to do today. We're going to work on for loops. Okay, and as you can see here, let me just increase the size of the screen a little bit. This here, that's a for loop. All right, it may look foreign to you still if you haven't got to this part of the platform yet, but we'll go ahead and explain what this is and how to read it. Okay, but before I explain how to read it, I gotta give a little bit of preface as to what we are, or exactly how we're going to read it. Okay, so let me stop sharing my screen from my PC and share from my Mac, and I'll draw on the screen here. So let's go ahead and switcheroo. Okay, so back to my Mac here. And what I'm going to do is draw on the screen. Okay. Okay, so we have for loops. And the one that we had from the, here, let me just take a note of the way it was written on the platform because I just deleted my background. I think it was, let me see here. Managing multiple screens, it's a little bit much, but we will manage. I think, oh, there it is. While num is less than or equal to 5. Okay, there we go. So let's get started. for loops. Okay, so I'll write out the for loop, and then I'll give the steps to how to read the for loop, okay? So I'm just gonna write it out as we saw on the platform, and then we'll make sense of it. So we start our for loop by saying for. That's the indication of a for loop, just like when we start an if statement, we write if. All right, and then I'm going to, in the for loop here, I'm going to declare a variable var num. So that's the name of my variable. Var num equals 0, and then a semicolon. And while num is less than or equal to 5, num plus plus. And I'm running out of space here, but what I'll do is try to squeeze it in. Okay. You guys can see that? Okay, so this is my for loop. And when we see this, one more thing I forgot. So this is the console log I need to write in, console.log. And then I say num. We are going to T-diagram on the right here. We're going to T-diagram up here. So let's write this here. Var and val. Okay. Our console, let's draw our console somewhere. Our console we're going to draw, let's draw it on the bottom right corner. Okay, let's just pretend we have a small screen area that we can print to at the bottom right. Okay, now that we have everything set up, I'm going to introduce here, well, I'll call it a for loop dance, because our eyes have to dance around this code here to be able to read it. So here's the dance sequence, all right? It is 1, 2, 3, and then 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, this is it's like we're learning a dance here. We're gonna have to learn these steps. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, what do I mean by this? Let's take a look. Okay, so the first thing we read in our for loop is this for. Right after the for loop comes the parentheses. In this parentheses area is the directions for how we need to iterate through something, repeat a steps a certain amount of time, or reading through a list of something. So here's the reading instructions, okay? Here is the do something area, right? Anywhere that we see inside these curly brackets here, I know this one's kind of on the edge, but you can see it now, okay? So this is we'll call it the do something section for now. So what I mean by do something section is for every time you read this line of code here, for every time you do this step, this list of instructions, what we'll show you how to do, you need to execute this console log. So this is going to save us the steps of having to write out console log 0, console log 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This here is the step that's going to be repeated over and over as this for loop continues. Okay, so let's check out how we can make this run, or how we can read this, better said. Okay, so we have var num equals 0. This is the first thing our eyes want to read. This is step 1. Var num equals 0. Okay, so let's go ahead and write that on our T diagram. Num, ooh, that M's got a little. Num is 0, right? That's what we start with. That's the value we have. We're just T-diagramming as usual. We see a variable, we make a note of it. We get its value in our memory. Okay. Now, the next step. Once we know this starts with 0, the next thing we want to do is read this here. We want to read this while num is less than or equal to 5. So this is step 2. All right. Is num less than or equal to 5? Yes, right? Because num is 0. It's going to be less than or equal to 5. So this is the qualifying statement for how long we should continue the for loop. All right. So this tells us how we should continue the for loop. What's our ending point? Our ending point says when num is less than or equal to 5. Okay. So maybe num will change. We'll look into that in a second. But we know this is our ending point.
So will we stop at 5?
So we're stopping when num is less than or equal to 5. That's our endpoint. Okay. This is our starting point.
Isn't it already? I mean, it's already less than 5 though.
It's already less than 5.
Yeah, I was just about to say that.
So we're just looking, we're just checking, and then we enter straight in. We go into this section here. We enter in, and we notice right away it tells us to do something. Console log num. So we take num, and then we console log it. 0. All right. So this was the third thing our eyes had to do. We look here, starting point. What's our end point? Then we move here. Okay. Then we console log num. All right. We've completed. Actually, we need to do one more step. So let me edit this here. I wrote the steps in reverse. Now we'll just have to relearn it backwards. We haven't gone that far yet though. So let me just do a little scribble here. Pretend you didn't see that for the fourth step. The fourth step is we increase. So we console log num. The fourth step now is we increase num. So when we see num plus plus, what we are seeing there is num equals itself plus 1. Or we're just adding 1 to num here. Okay, so we're adding 1 to num. So what's num plus 1? It's going to be 1. 0 plus 1 is 1. Okay, so now we have our new value of num. We've finished the fourth step. We've done the first sequence. Now we just do this 1, 2, 3 steps. So sorry about the mix up at the beginning here. 1, 2, 3. Now we just do 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So let's do the 1, 2, 3 step. We check here. We check our endpoint. All right. So this is our 1. We check our endpoint. Is num currently less than or equal to 5? Is it currently less than or equal to 5? Yes, right?
Yes.
I see some nods.
Yes.
Num is 1. Num is 1, and that's less than 5. 1 is less than 5. So then we go here. This is our 2. Okay, we console log. So we do this. What is our console log right now? Num, we console log 1. So we get the 1. All right, and 3. Third step, increase. We just do this step over and over until we reach our endpoint here. Okay, so let's do this now. Let's increase num. So now num is going to go to 2. Is 2 less than 5? Yes, right? 2 is less than 5. So then we go to, so then we go here to step 2, console log num.
Okay.
Console log num. Okay, so we'll go ahead and console log it 2. And then we go to step 3, num plus plus. Okay, so we increase num again. So let's write it down here. 3 is
so
3.
the plus plus mean to add 1?
Yes, add 1 to it. Yes, exactly. Good question. Yes, add 1. And feel free to interrupt, guys, in case you're getting lost in the steps. We'll go over this again. We'll draw this again from scratch just to make sure we get it. So we have this, where do we leave off? We just increased it to 3, right? So now we're at step 3. We increased it. Is 3 less than 5, right? We're at step 1. We do the 1, 2, 3 again, 1, 2, 3 until we finish. Is 1 less than 5?
Yes.
Sorry, not 1 less. It's 3 less than 5. Sorry, I'm looking at step 1. 3
Yes.
less than 5, yes. So then we go here to step 2, console log num, console log 3. All right, then we go to step 3, increase num again. We increase num, so then num becomes 4. We check. Step 1, is num less than or equal to 5? If this is true, then we enter. So then we enter, we go to step 2, console log num. What is num? Num is 4, so we'll go ahead and log num 4. And then we go to step 3, increase num again. Let's increase num again, so 4 to 5. And then we look here, is num less than 5? No. Is num equal to 5? Yes. Num is equal to 5, so then we enter again. Console log num. We console log num here, 5. And then we increase num again. All right, now we increase num. Num is now 6. Num is now 6. Is num less than or equal to 5?
Yes. No.
No.
It's greater
Gotcha.
than.
No. It's 6.
It's-
6 is less, not
It's
less than
equal
equal
now,
to
right?
5. No.
Oh
It's
no, 6. It's 6 now.
6.
Okay.
Yeah. So 6 is not less than or equal to 5. So as soon as this is no longer true, we quit. We finished.
So we stop right there. Now, do we log 6 or no?
No, because we would only log 6 if we were to enter this do something section. We only enter this do something section if this is true. If this is true. So since this is no longer true, num is no longer less than or equal to 5. So then we have finished, and this is our result.
And that's the answer. Okay, I got you.
Yep, that's our result. So now, instead of console logging 0, console log 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, we wrote a for loop and made the machine do it for us.
I got a question, quick question.
Yes.
So I know where the console log is for num. Never mind.
No, go ahead. I mean, what you can do. Yeah, go ahead.
It's not there because in one of the problems we started off with variables instead of the variables were already defined. And so they were like console log num and then the variable that we were adding to too at the same time. Like,
yes. So what you could do, you can do anything you like. You could console log anything you like when you get to this do something area. Okay. You could console log 0 5 times. Or how many times did we log? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We log 6 times. You can log 0 6 times. You can log num plus 1 6 times. Whatever you want to add inside this console log, that's your freedom. You can do whatever you want. It's how many times you do it, which is the feature of the for loop. So the for loop can make you repeat a certain amount of steps a certain amount of times. For every time you complete a step, you can make it do something. So either console log num, console log hi mom, console log whatever you want. So you can write whatever you like, and maybe we'll do it a different way now. Okay, so we have this way. I will have the steps better next time. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. We'll learn from my mistake. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. So let's write one more for loop. How about that? Okay, for loop number 2. This will be very similar to the first one, and then we'll move on to a different kind of for loop. But before I do that, let me just take a quick poll check before I start down this path. Let me take a quick poll check how well we're understanding for loops so far. And I want to see how well we understand it after I do it one more time. Okay, I think there's screen readers on Zoom as well, so something's going on. Okay, so let's do the for loop one more time. For loop. Reminds me of Fruit Loops. Okay. Step, we said 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, now you don't want to write. Okay, hold on. Huh. Okay. Oh, I see. I see. Try this. Here we go. For loops. One, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. All right. So let's think, how are we going to make this for loop different? What do we want to do instead of console log num this time? Do we want to console log? Let's console log hello a couple times. Let's just do it a couple times. This won't be as long of a for loop, so we don't have to mark as much. So let's just write.
I was gonna say, can we add the variable outside of the for loop?
Oh, yeah. Let's do that instead. Let's do that. Let's do that. I like that better. Okay, so we have the for loop for, and then the parentheses. And now I'm going to say var I. Instead of num, I'm going to call it I now. Okay, var I equals 0, semicolon. So these semicolons separate out how you should read. So let me see if I can highlight these semicolons. Okay, so we got our first semicolon, var I equals 0, and we want to increase I to 3. So while I is less than or equal to 0, 1, 2, let's just do it to 2. Okay, and then we have our part 3 of the for loop, this end of the parentheses section. We want to make that, let's just increase by 1, I plus plus. Okay, and then we have our squiggly bracket, and JavaScript doesn't necessarily care the way you indent or how your syntax is ordered, but we do have a conventional way of writing it. We like to see indentation here for each curly bracket. All right, and we said when we get inside, we wanted to console log I plus what? I plus itself, I plus I. Let's try that. I plus, let's just start simple. Let's just start simple. I plus 2. Okay. All right. And also semicolons, by the way, you may have noticed they should go at the end of each line, like this line here. You shouldn't put a semicolon here on the right side of an open bracket, but put a semicolon like this on some of the lines. It's not necessary for the interpreter to know and read it, but it's like just standard syntax. Like, so you just, when you're in the industry, sometimes an older developer may notice, hey, you need to put that semicolon there. And that's just the old school way of writing it. So it just becomes standardized. So always put the semicolon there. All right, so now let's read through our for loop. Oh, let's create the console log. That is necessary as well. Not the console log, but the console area and our T diagram. So let's write that up there. Here's our T diagram. Var, val. Okay. So let's read through this. We're on the first sequence of steps, 1, 2, 3, 4. So let's go through that. Number 1, we read this here. What does this say? Var I equals 0. So we say I equals 0. Then we look at step 2. Is I less than or equal to 2? Yes.
Yes.
Yes. So if this is true, then we enter. So we enter. Console log I plus 2. I is 0. 0 plus 2 is 2. So we console log this. We've done this step, one last one. So we increase. So we go here. Let's increase. I plus plus. So now we have a new value for I. Okay, so now that we finished this sequence of steps, now the first time we only do it once. Now we do this again, but we do it with our 1, 2, 3 step. All right, so the first time we read 1, 2, 3, 4. Now let's read 1, 2, 3. All right, 1, and then this is step 2, and then this end bit here is step 3. Okay, so step 1 is, we check here, is I less than or equal to 2? Is I less than or equal to 2?
Yes, it's less than.
Yes.
Okay, so then we enter. Console log I plus 2, what's that?
It's 3.
Okay, so we have 3. And then we go here, we increase I again. Increase I to 2. All right, and then we go back to step 1. We check. Is I less than or equal to 2?
Equal to.
Yes, equal to. So it's true. We enter. So we console log. Oh, sorry. We didn't do this right. We didn't do this right. What was I at someone should have stopped me. So what was
I was kind of lost because I'm like, where did 3 come from?
I was 1.
Yeah, I kind of just like wrote it. Okay, it didn't. Yeah, so check yourself. Before we move to this step, we already made a mistake, but we can go back and figure out what we did wrong. What was I at this step? I was 1, so I plus 2 would have been. No, wait.
Yeah, it's
right.
3.
I did that right. I just had a moment of self-doubt. Sorry, just had a brain fart.
I plus 1.
It's 3. So now we're this step again. I is 2. What's I plus 2?
It's 3, so it's 5.
No. I plus 2. 2 is
2.
I is 2, and so 2 plus 2 is 4. Yeah.
4.
There we go. Are we following along? We're all good. Sorry, I had made a mistake. I had a self-doubt. The trick with for loops is keeping your concentration. Keeping your concentration as you make notes of the increases and steps you have to do once you increase. Okay. So we've done that. We've done step 2. We've console logged. So now we increase I again. I increases to 3. Is I being 3 less than or equal to 2?
No.
No. So then we finished. We finished.
So it's 2, 3, 4 is the finish line.
That's what that's the command that we wanted to do for each time we iterated from 0 to 2. When we went from 0 to 2, we wanted to console log I plus 2 each time. So our console reflects that here. So yes, we're done. Yes, the answer is yes. Okay. And let's take one more poll here. I wish I would have. Kept the concentration a little better. We'll do better. Okay, so let's look at our platform once again. So let me share my screen from this side. Stop share. I need to stop share. There we go. Okay. Screen 2. Okay. So we now mastered how to read through a for loop, how to T-diagram a for loop, and the steps that we need to make our eyes read across the for loop and make notes of the increases in our index. We usually call it I. And here in this example, it's called num. We usually call whatever var, we can call it anything, but it's usually called I. Okay, so here are the steps leading up to describing what we just did. But we just did it, so we don't have to read through this. Okay, so let's move on. Okay. Here, we see that reference to index that I just mentioned. Var index equals 2. And when we see index equals index plus 1, that's exactly what it's describing. It's taking itself and adding 1 to itself. So the first, it's referencing this var index above, 2. So index equals 2 plus 1. So this is one way that you can increase the index in a for loop. Okay, it doesn't always have to be I plus plus or index plus plus or num plus plus. It doesn't always have to be written in just incrementing by 1. You can increment by 1 this way, or think you can also increment by any other number you add besides 1. So I think we will do a for loop where we increase by more than 1. All right, so let's keep this in mind. This is the syntax where we're going to use to increase by more than 1. All right. And as it says here, by that same token, we can decrease an index as well. We can decrease an index. So if we have this var starting at 5, let's say we see that in our for loop, the index or counter, var counter equals 5. We can see counter equals itself minus 1. Or we can say counter minus minus. We can also increase counter by multiplication. Times equals 6. So you'll multiply counter by 6 if you do times equals, the multiplication sign before the equal sign. And also division. Counter divide equals 2. You would be dividing here. Wait, hold on a second. Is this correct? Counter equals. Oh no, it's changing.
It's going off the line before, right?
Yeah, it's changing the most updated version, right? So here it starts. Let's T-diagram this one. I'm gonna use Zoom here. Okay, so text. Okay, so let's write it here. Counter. What does counter start with? Counter starts with the value of 5. And then we read, let's take off that. We read here, counter equals itself minus 1. So what is the current value of counter? It's 5 minus 1 is going to be 4. So that's going to be the new value for counter. We say,
which is 4.
yep, exactly. So now at this step here, we've just finished this, and now counter is 4. So then we say counter minus minus. And as it says there, we just decrease by 1. So we want to say counter is now 3. All right, that's the new value of counter. We move on to the next, to the next line, to this line. Counter times equals 6. And so what's 3 times 6?
This is 18.
Right. So that's our newest value. And then
divided by 2.
now we divide it by 2. Now we divide it by 2. Counter divide equals 2. And that we get there, as you see, 9. Because 18 divided by 2 is 9. So we can also decrease. And there are different ways that we can decrease, just as there are different ways that we can increase. We can say counter equals itself minus this number. We can change this number to be 2, 3. So we can decrease by a certain set of numbers. We can start our counter at any point we'd like also. We don't always have to start at 0 when we're iterating through a for loop. So it's what we want to read through for what purpose, okay? So we can design our for loop to fit our purpose. Okay, so let's look at this for loop. Let's work on this one on my screen as well. Okay, so let's do this. We'll slightly modify it as well so that we get a bit of a challenge. All right, so let me stop sharing here. And well, yes, okay, here we are. Screen. Okay. So we have this for loop now. Okay, so this one, I'm going to write it here for var I equals let's see here, 6. We'll make it 6. Var I equals 6. And while I is greater than 3, I minus, no, so I equals itself I minus 2. How about that? Let's just go with 2. Okay. Okay, here we are. So let's write our T diagram in our console. Okay, here we are. Now let's go ahead and read through this. Var I, oh, we got to make it to do something. Okay, actually, we created a for loop, but we didn't make it do anything for each iteration. So I just noticed that. What do we want to make it do? Let's just make it do something different, simple. Console.log hello. All right, so now let's get to reading it. Var I equals 6. That's what we start with, right? So I equals 6. We check here, is I greater than 3? Yes,
True.
right? True. 6 is greater than 3, so then we do this. We write hello in the console. Now our eyes turn here. And I equals I minus 2. So I equals 6 minus 2. Okay, so 6 minus 2 is 4. That's our new value for I. Oh, yeah. Okay, so then we say, is I greater than 3? Is I still greater than 3?
Yeah.
Yes. So then we enter here and we console log hello. And then we immediately go to this step. Anytime you finish this step, the do something immediately increase.
So the first starting point is going to always be like the I equals 6, and then it's going to be a new starting point where it goes to that is I greater than whatever.
Yes, exactly. That's why I had the 1, 2, 3, 4, and then the new step.
And the
1, 2,
next
3.
1, 2, 3. Yeah.
Yeah, starts from there. So
I
let's.
got you.
All right, so then we go I equals I minus 2. We already did that. We got 4. We checked here. Is 4 greater than 3? Yes. So then we console log hello. We did that. And so now we do this step again.
Which is 2.
Yes. So then we decrease it to 2. Is 2 greater than 3?
No.
Okay, so then we finished. As soon as this is no longer true, okay, this area, let's write a little note here. When this is no longer true,
Stop.
stop. Exactly. When this is no longer true, you must stop. Okay, and so that's how we can repeat a sequence over and over using a for loop. Let's take a poll to see how well we understand that we can decrease using a for loop as well as increase. I got to take the poll myself on my PC here. Do I understand my own lesson? Yes, I hope I do.
I think you're pumping up the numbers, aren't you?
I'm pumping up the numbers. No. Yeah.
Just kidding.
Yeah, I lost my train of thought with that joke. Let's move on. I gotta share my screen, I think, from my PC again. Let's do that. Okay, so we just finished this one. Now we can count backwards. So let's move on. Let me check how we're doing on time. We got about 15 minutes left. Let's do one more super important thing. And I am going to move to let's see my schedule here. Let's see. We have functions this afternoon. Okay, so I'm not going to dive into functions yet. What I want to do, we have more for loops tomorrow morning, so I won't overdo them for loops here. Let's see if I can think of one more example that we can take a look at. Oh, I know what we'll do. We'll take a look at our assignment and then we'll close it out on that. So we have this practice assignment. So I encourage you guys to do this practice assignment. Let's look at what it does. Or let's look at the instructions. A local fitness coach and a mechanical engineer are building a LOT device that pops out a piece of candy every time a runner reaches 2 miles on a treadmill but stops giving candy out at mile 6. You're tasked with building a loop functionality to know when to give a piece of candy and when to stop. Okay. So you're building a treadmill. You're building a software for like a treadmill device, and the treadmill is going to pop out a piece of candy every time the runner reaches 2 miles. right? So the runner is going to start at mile 0, right? Because they have no miles yet completed. But when they reach mile 2, the treadmill should pop out a piece of candy. And when we say pop out, we just mean console log, right? So do that thing that you want it to do, console log, hey, here's a piece of candy. So that is an assignment that would require a for loop, right? You have to do something in a sequence of steps. So let's see here. If we can read this and figure out here the main, a local fitness coach and mechanical engineer pops out a piece of candy every time. So every time here, that's what should indicate in the word problem that a for loop is needed. When we give you assignments now through the dojo, we give you these key points to follow, these steps to follow. And well, when you turn in an assignment, like let's say this one here, it'll ask you, did you complete these steps? Do these steps. Sometimes they're not so evident in the assignments, like this one here, it doesn't give you a list of steps to do. But that's usually the way a word problem will be set up for you in the real world. They're not going to give you, create a for loop that does this, make it do this each time. They're just going to give you a word problem, and you're going to have to read it and determine for yourself, what's the best tool that I have in order to make this work? What are my tools that I have? I have if statements and I have for loops. And you can rely on those to be two main pillars to solve problems. Either I need to read through something, or I need to determine if something is true or false. And you can use them together. Let's do, I know what we're going to do now. Let's do one last for loop. Okay, let's do one last for loop, and then we'll close it out on this. And I think this would be a good example.
I do have one quick question, and maybe you could showcase it in this example.
Okay, go ahead.
Do you always have to declare the variable within the for loop, or can you declare
Yes.
it before?
Yes, you have to declare it within.
Okay.
And we'll see, we'll be able to write something, well, I don't want to get too ahead, but there's something called while loops, and you will declare the variable outside. That's the difference. So for loops plus if statement. Okay, for loop plus an if statement. I know I wrote the title to this a little to the right, but it's there. All right, so what we're going to do is write a for loop with an if statement. We're going to write a for loop with an if statement. All right, so for var I equals, we'll start from 0. Okay, var I equals 0, and while I is less than, let's say less than 4, I plus plus, simple for loop. Okay, and then we'll end the for loop down here. And now what I want to do is write an if statement within this for loop. We can do that. We can combine for loops and if statements. So let's write an if statement in here. If, and what do I want to check? If
What about like if I is even, console log something?
yeah, but I haven't introduced the modulo symbol yet, so I don't want to
Sorry.
confuse too much. What I want to say is, let's say if I is equal to, if I is equal to 2, if at any point I is equal to 2, I want you to this is my closing curly bracket, console log hello. Okay, that's all I want to do. I have a for loop. I'm going to read from 0 to 4. And if at any point I is equal to 2, I want to console log hello. So let's go ahead and do this one. And we'll close out the lecture after this. So I'll write my T diagram here. And let's write the console right here. All right, so let's get started. For var I equals 0, that's our first step. So let's write it here. Let's make it in blue so it's easier to see. I start with 0. And then we go here. While I is less than 4, is I less than 4? Yes, because we started with 0. So then we enter here. We go into here. Now we check this if statement. If I is equal to 2, console log hello. Is I currently equal to 2? No. I is 0, right? That's what we see here, 0. So then we move on. This does not pass. If this does not pass, we see where the end bracket is. The beginning one is here, the end one is here. So we did everything in the do something section. We checked. So now we move along. We increase I. So if we increase I, what's the new value of I? I plus plus. So then we increase to 1. Once we've increased, then we check again. Is I less than 4? Is 1 less than 4? Yes. So then we enter. If I is equal to 2, console log hello, I is not equal to 2. It's still less than 2. It's 1. So we increase I again. Now I is 2. And while 2, I being 2, is it less than 4? Yes, it is less than 4. So then we enter. If I is equal to 2, so we check I, yes. Now I is currently equal to 2. So now we do this. All right, so now we console log hello. We've done it. So now we increase I again. Let's increase it to 3. Is 3 less than 4? Yes, 3 is less than 4. So then we go in here and we read if I is equal to 2. I is not equal to 2. It's above 2, right? It's higher than 2. It's 3. So then we don't do this. And then we increase I again. So now it's 4. And is 4, I being 4, is it less than 4? 4 is not less than 4. 4 is equal to 4. So then we stop. We complete the loop. We iterate I as many times as it takes to stop here, right? This is our stopping point. We don't stop until we actually fulfilled all of the changes for I, so that it can no longer fulfill this requirement. Then we stop changing I once we do that. Okay. Doesn't matter if you only have to do one thing in this section, or if it never passes at all. We still have to loop through the whole entire loop. But we can combine an if statement. We can stick it right inside a for loop, and we can stick a for loop inside an if statement as well. All right. So now it's up to you guys to create for loops, loop through data. Well, tomorrow morning we'll be covering looping through data. All right. So let me end this. Well, let me take one more poll. How well do we understand that we can combine for loops and if statements? Okay, it's looking good. So let me share my screen. Am I already sharing my Mac screen? Yes, right? Okay. All right, so we have completed our lecture on for loops and operators. Actually, we're going to move operators to this afternoon. I'm going to touch up on a little bit on operators. I mostly spent it on loops this morning because I really wanted us to grasp how to do loops. It took me a bit of a learning curve how to get used to a for loop, and I'm sure it will for some of you as well. It just takes practice, okay? Doing a sequence of steps, if you do it over again, you know, it's just like anything you practice. If you practice a certain dance move, eventually you'll get it down, right? So get these moves down. Learn to read through a for loop, and you'll be on your way to being a better programmer and passing the test tomorrow, okay? So this is what we need to know in order to pass the test, how to read through a for loop. All right, so this afternoon, we are going to cover functions and parameters. This is going to be a fun lesson. It's going to be a major lesson. Functions and parameters. Super important that we have our thinking caps on for this afternoon. Okay, because this is one of the trickier concepts to grasp. But once you get it, it'll be an awesome light bulb moment. All right, so this afternoon, we're working on functions and parameters. Today, your assignment is to work on the loop-de-loop challenge, the one I had described, and Algo app level 4 and 5. By the end of the day, we want to complete the parameters code challenge here. Let me see. Can't tab through. All right, well, I can't scroll through, but it's there at the very bottom. Code challenge parameters. And you have that to work on, but we have a bunch of assignments as well here. Predict functions, return, debug parameters. I wouldn't worry about completing these if you don't understand what it's being required. This lecture here will clarify any questions you may have for these assignments. Okay, and that should get us started for the day, everyone. Good job sticking through the lecture. Thank you guys for being patient with me and letting me switch screens back and forth during the lecture. I appreciate you guys. So let's go ahead and end the recording and close this out.